Denver's latest spin on the cost of the migrant crisis. The city isn't laying off workers, just reducing their hours to zero. Outside Denver, it's more fake claims about a migrant influx in a new city this week.
And they dropped off a dozen illegal immigrants. They had no identification.
Colorado's new greenhouse gas plan outlines what the state isn't willing to do to cut emissions. And a community sets aside space to honor a young hero. Now they just need a memorial. That's tonight on Next. The city of Denver does not want headlines that it's laying off employees in order to pay for the migrant crisis. But the city is telling hourly employees that they may have their hours reduced to zero. Just don't call them layoffs. Here's Mark Salinger.
When we got a tip that employees at this rec center were being told they no longer had jobs, we asked the city if there were new layoffs that hadn't been announced yet. Can you confirm if this is accurate? I asked the mayor's office and Parks and Rec department. Their answer was meant to assure us that we were wrong. No layoffs, they said. However, some employees may have their hours reduced to the point where they may not receive any hours. They're not calling it layoffs, but it definitely sounds like some people may not have jobs anymore.
These direct impacts today on DMV do not involve layoffs, nor do Parks and Rec involve layoffs of our current employees. We will have folks that are hourly workers that will have fewer hours.
When Mayor Mike Johnston announced earlier this month that the city would cut budgets, he warned hourly employees would lose some work. Now we know they could lose all their work.
I don't want to hide the fact that this matters a lot to those people that are on the front lines.
The Parks and Rec department tells us everyone from front desk workers to coaches to lifeguards are considered on-call employees that could be impacted by these cuts. The department has been told to cut $4.3 million to help the city pay for the migrant crisis. Johnston said today it hasn't been decided which jobs will have their hours cut and by how much.
We have not made any final decisions yet on cuts other ones that we announced already. And so all of our departments, all of our agencies, we're going to have to find a way to prioritize.
Employees who have had their hours reduced to the point where they aren't earning enough money to still work are allowed to apply for unemployment benefits in the same way as if they were laid off. Information posted on the state's website indicates they would be eligible to receive unemployment benefits from the state. The mayor also hinted today that the city will be reducing the services offered to newly arriving migrants. Kyle, although he didn't offer any specifics, he said that that would be coming sometime in the next couple of days.
I understand why it's not technically a layoff, but it is essentially a layoff. If you're working 35 hours a week, you get taken to 0 hours a week and you can apply for unemployment. This honestly reminds me of under the Hancock administration when they would do homeless sweeps and they would tell journalists in town, don't call them sweeps. We like different words.
Sure. If you don't have a job, I mean, when you boil it down, if you say, hey, I'm earning enough money for 35, 40 hours a week and now you're earning 0, it feels like you lost your job. And today, the Johnson administration, we've talked a lot about House 1000, the mayor's efforts to bring people inside, solve homelessness. They are now rebranding that. It is no longer House 1000. I have to look at what it is. It's called All In Mile High now.
All in Mile High.
We're told it's the same priority, same way how it operates. It's just now not House 1000. It's All In Mile High.
It's tough to keep up with the words that they want us to use on the news. It's a good thing we don't actually do that. All right, Mark, thank you. So Denver is going to be scaling back its shelter operation for migrants. They've made that clear for weeks. And Aurora is about to make it clear tonight that it does not want migrants there. The conservative leadership in Colorado's most diverse city has even threatened nonprofits that might choose to help migrants. Tonight, Aurora City Council is expected to reaffirm an existing resolution that Aurora is not a sanctuary city and then add that Aurora does not have resources to help migrants. Conservative Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky went so far as to say that Aurora will defund nonprofits that choose to assist migrants.
You will receive no services in the city of Aurora, not from our Office of Immigration. There will be no staff support. There will be no nonprofit support from the nonprofits that we support, or they do run the risk of losing city support.
Should be clear, we don't know that anything she's saying there will actually come to pass because what she's saying is not in this resolution. And Aurora City Attorney has told City Council that another part of the resolution requiring Denver or any other place to ask permission before transporting migrants there, that is not legally enforceable. Denver's previous attempt to shelter migrants in Aurora went really badly. People complained about being forced out of that extended stay motel to make room for migrants. And after that, Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman said he asked Denver to stop sheltering any migrants in his city. This actual situation with migrants in Colorado is difficult enough on the facts of it. But misinformation about migrants in another community in Colorado is once again being spread on Fox News Channel.
We are not going to spend taxpayer dollars on supporting the illegal immigrants that could come down from Denver.
Monument Mayor Mitch LeKind went on Fox News Channel to talk about his opposition to spending tax dollars to help migrants and to suggest that migrants are dangerous.
The safety and security of the 10,000 plus residents here in Monument is of natural concern.
But Monument hasn't seen any migrants from Denver.
Like, are you seeing people arriving in your town that weren't there before?
No, not yet. We're actually not experiencing that at this time. However,
that didn't stop the mayor of Monument from passing along a rumor from another town, a claim that wasn't fact-checked or challenged on Fox News.
the mayor of Canyon City reached out to me in the last 48 hours and provided me a picture of a van that was dropped off by a Methodist church from Denver. And they dropped off a dozen illegal immigrants. They had no identification. They had no ability to speak English. And the police could not do anything with them. They just vanished into the community.
Canyon City's mayor says he was texted this fuzzy photo by a citizen last week. Canyon City police tell our partners at KRDO that the photo is actually from 3 months ago, that they checked it out that day, and the people in the van were not migrants. The Canyon City claim echoes what Fox News says is happening in Lakewood.
Residents say their hard-earned tax dollars are going toward migrants and that resources are simply being overwhelmed.
Despite Fox News' claim migrants overwhelm resources in Denver suburb, there is no evidence that Lakewood or Canyon City or Monument are taking in migrants from Denver. Colorado's greenhouse gas plan is not going to meet its goals. So today, the governor rolled out a new greenhouse gas plan that also won't meet the goals. Our Marshall Zellinger looks at lessons learned about what works and what doesn't.
A roadmap gets you from A to B to C, though we call roadmaps Google Maps today. But I digress. The governor today announced Roadmap 2.0 for reducing greenhouse gas pollution.
We have achieved 95% of the actions that were identified in that first roadmap in just 3 years.
Roadmap 2.0 admits what the first roadmap also confessed, that certain benchmarks will be late. In the original roadmap, 2025 greenhouse gas goals would not be met until 2027. 2.0 does not reference that goal, but says the 2030 goal won't be achieved until 2031 or 2032. To reduce greenhouse gases in the near term, the governor laid out dozens of policy hopes, from getting utilities on a new timeline for renewables to getting the state involved in local land use issues, particularly around building housing near transit to limit someone's need for a car. Land use legislation did not make it to his desk last year, with significant pushback by local cities and counties that want the state to mind its business. Here are ideas that were considered but are not moving forward as part of the governor's roadmap. Charging drivers for using roads during congestion periods or charging drivers per mile traveled. Banning gas appliances by a certain date is not going to be implemented, though the roadmap points out other state policy decisions may increase the purchase of new electric appliances. And a flat-out ban of oil and gas production is not part of the roadmap. Though last week, state lawmakers introduced a bill to ban oil and gas drilling 5 months of the year. 2.0 states, our strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is to make clean energy cheap rather than make fossil fuels expensive. The policy ideas that appear in the roadmap either need to be passed by lawmakers and then end up on the governor's desk, or implemented through decisions by the Public Utilities Commission or Air Quality Control Commission, for instance. I found what's not being considered easier to condense than what is, Kyle, because of all the variables.
Sure. And of course, this is goal setting by the governor when Obviously, he's not going to be in office. Well, he's not going to be in his current office when 2030 rolls around. We're not supposed to talk about that, right? Okay, we're not supposed to talk about that. He's not going to be in office in 2030 when this next set of goals comes due.
Right. And so normally we've been like 6, 7, 8 years ago, we're talking about like, well, what state legislature is going to exist in the future? And will some of those goals be stopped because suddenly, it's a split party where Republicans are in charge of one side and you can't get those policy initiatives passed anymore? But it seems pretty clear that whatever the Democrats want, the majority of them at least, can sail through into the future in Colorado, given the landscape of what's happened in previous elections.
Yeah. Marshall, thank you. The Colorado Republican Party is becoming increasingly brazen in its efforts to help its chairman, Dave Williams, get elected to Congress by damaging his Republican rivals for the nomination. Today, the Colorado GOP used its mailing list to tell Republicans not to donate to that guy. That's Williams' chief Republican rival, Jeff Crank. Crank used to work for, and he's now backed by the conservative group Americans for Prosperity. The state Republican Party attacked both in this mass mailing for not being sufficiently supportive of Donald Trump. Attempts to ban books in Colorado are on the rise, with calls from conservatives in El Paso County to prosecute librarians and school leaders. Now, Democrats in the state legislature are pushing a bill to make it harder to ban books. The bill, introduced by Senate Democrats Lisa Cutter and Chris Kolker, would outline who could challenge a book and set up a standardized process for reviewing challenges. If this bill becomes law, the superintendent in each school district would set up a review committee of district administrators, staffers, students, as well as parents of students of color and members of the LGBTQ community. The board would have to unanimously approve book removal requests, which could only be submitted by an enrolled student or their parent. They couldn't come from an outside interest group. You got supporters of the bill, like library districts and progressive education groups, that say that standardizing a process for challenging books keeps national groups, national right-wing groups, from coming in and asking for dozens of hundreds of books to be taken out. But critics, including some charter schools and conservative parents' rights groups, say that this would take away local control.
Children deserve the freedom to learn, and codifying a legal right to read demonstrates Coloradans' commitment to providing students with a comprehensive education.
Book challenge matters should be handled by elected officials who reflect their communities, like the school board, so there is accountability.
After hearing hours of testimony today, the bill's sponsors decided to put off a vote for a later date. You fully funded 2 vet clinics on the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation this year. You did that. Your Word of Thanks microgiving, $50,000 of it last week, covered the cost of the multi-day clinics that'll happen for pets in April and October. The folks at the nonprofit Res Dog Rescue said it warms their heart what you did for them and all those animals and for the people in the Ute Mountain Ute community. All right, so now you've raised $12 million for nonprofits truly in every corner of Colorado. So where to next? Who can we help? Email your ideas to me at next@9news.com.
There's not a minute or a second that goes by that we don't think about him. But for the community, I think this is huge.
And that community is a step closer to honoring this teenage hero who did not hesitate to protect his friends. Another day of high fire danger across Colorado. We're tracking 3 fires still burning near Colorado Springs. Even with a winter storm in the forecast, we had pretty dangerous fire conditions across the state today. Red flag warnings covering almost half of Colorado were lifted at the top of the hour. Wind throughout the day made it tougher to fight 3 fires that are burning near the springs. The West Monument Creek fire is burning on the south end of the Air Force Academy, 168 acres, started yesterday afternoon. Some good news today, firefighters say it is not currently spreading, they're just working hot spots. They've canceled the pre-evacuation warning for neighbors, and they're hopeful for rain and snow tomorrow. Firefighters on Fort Carson are now battling 2 wildfires that started on training ground. One was sparked late this morning and quickly ran to about 100 acres within an hour. 100 acres within an hour on that fire. Firefighters down there were already working a fire that got going Sunday and burned through about 7,000 acres. As of this afternoon, that fire was 80% contained, and neither of those fires at Fort Carson anywhere close to buildings. And Kathy Sabin, Nature's Fire Extinguisher, comes in tomorrow.
We sure hope so, Kyle. It's going to be a fast-moving system, but it will bring colder weather less wind and that rain and snow that we really do need. Critical fire weather conditions continue across a large portion of Colorado even this evening. We're not seeing the wind ramp up on the higher terrain areas yet, but that'll be changing overnight. There's a winter storm warning for the mountains for several feet of snow. Temperatures today in the 60s and 70s in eastern Colorado have cooled back only slightly as those gusty westerly winds continue to come off the foothills at 40 and 50 miles per hour. Red flag warnings for southeastern Colorado extended through 8 p.m., lifted for Denver and northeastern Colorado, and high wind warnings will also continue for southeastern Colorado tomorrow and portions of Wyoming, all part of a storm system that hasn't brought a lot of snow to the state yet, but overnight 1 to 3 feet with winds to 80 miles per hour possible in the southern mountains. So that's going to be some hazardous travel late tonight and tomorrow. Denver's dry tonight, the winds easing after sunset as we've already seen. By tomorrow morning at 5:30, a little snow in Fort Collins, moving into Denver during the morning drive. We've got a window for snow, light accumulating snow from about 5 a.m. to about 3 in the afternoon, hoping it'll be out by the evening drive. This won't be a big precip maker for the Front Range, but any amount of rain and snow with the tinder dry conditions we've seen, the wind and the high fire danger, I think at this point will be welcome. We're dry with temperatures very mild now through the overnight time period. Big changes tomorrow, a high of only 40. Rain to snow during the morning drive, ending by the evening drive. Temperatures tomorrow night go into the teens, and then we're off and running again. Back to sunshine and 60s for the weekend with the next storm and chance for snow late in the weekend into early next week.
We gather to launch a campaign to memorialize a true hero.
Nearly 5 years after a student in Highlands Ranch gave his life to stop a school shooter, the community is asked to give him a memorial. There's a site picked out for a memorial to Kendrick Castillo, the teenager from Highlands Ranch who died stopping a school shooting. Now the community begins fundraising for that memorial itself. Kendrick Castillo was killed while he rushed a shooter at STEM School Highlands Ranch in 2019. 8 of his classmates were shot that day. All the others survived. Today, Douglas County leaders announced they plan to set up a memorial to Castillo's bravery in Civic Green Park. It's a spot that's special to Kendrick's family.
As was stated earlier, Kendrick spent time waiting to start robotics in this library with his friends. They would do the STEM launch in this park, which was the kickoff for the school year. He would come here with his friends after school and hang out. So there's a lot of meaning here.
Any funds that are left over once the memorial is built will be used for a scholarship in Kendrick's memory. We finished with your feedback. Marissa has that. Thank you. We'll have it for you next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is getting tricked by one of our false springs. Jennifer sent us a photo of her nieces and their stuffed friends getting a little pool time improvised in Castle Pines yesterday. It was gorgeous over the weekend. I mean, the sun was shining, it was warm, there were crocuses blooming all over town, so of course you know snow's on the way. If you see something that looks like Colorado to you, send it our way, next at 9news.com. Liza writes in today to say, Kyle, why do migrants need work permits? Great question. It's so that employers can legally hire them. Without work permits, the pool of employers willing to take that chance of hiring somebody who does not have legal permission to work shrinks down a lot smaller. Shirley says, did you say that Word of Thanks has raised $12 million? I hope you take time and consider how wonderfully extraordinary a feat that is. Shirley, I hope you all take time, because it's almost all your money. Take time to acknowledge what a wonderfully extraordinary feat that is. And Sandy, who says, what's up with your jackets lately? They've been so tame and subdued. Are you serious? What do you want? Like tassels, flashing lights, glow in the dark?